You think he has regret with what he did?
I think he'll be instructed by what has occurred here.
What lesson did you learn from impeachment?
That the Democrats are crooked.
I think that he knows now that if he is trying to do certain things, whether it's ferreting out corruption there, in Afghanistan, whatever it is, he needs to go through the proper channels.
They've got a lot of crooked things going, that they're vicious, that they shouldn't have brought impeachment.
If a call like that gets you an impeachment, I would think you would think twice before you did it again.
And that my poll numbers are 10 points higher because of fake news like NBC, which reports the news very inaccurately, probably more inaccurately than CNN, if that's possible. MSDNC.
I believe that the president has learned from this case. The president has been impeached. That's a pretty big lesson.
And your MS, and if you take a look at NBC, now I think they're among the most dishonest reporters of the news.
There haven't been very strong indicators here this week that he has.
Oh, so if you didn't hear that last part, Senator Lisa Murkowski says no. President Trump has not changed his behavior. In fact, as conservative writer Windsor Mann points out, if the president did learn any lesson from his acquittal, that lesson is it's easier to commit high crimes and misdemeanors in public view to avoid all those annoying investigations. So now it seems that Trump has carte blanche to enact his revenge, removing those who testified, withdrawing nominations, attacking a judge, attacking prosecutors, attacking the FBI, and unleashing the Attorney General to do his dirty work. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Thursday, February 13th. Along with Joe, Willie, and me, we have MSNBC contributor Mike Barnicle, former aide to the George W. Bush White House and State Department's Elise Jordan, former senior advisor for the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, now a Morning Joe contributor Kurt Bardella, and co-founder and CEO of Axios, Jim VandeHei. And Joe, he continues to make fools of Republicans every step of the way.
Well, I mean, I think they knew he was going to. They're either buffoons, they're either buffoons or they're liars, trying to cover up for the fact that they're too afraid to do the right thing because they may lose a couple of points for their approval rating. But Willie, this is so predictable. Donald Trump gets past the Mueller investigation right after Robert Mueller testifies. What happens? Well, the next day, he starts in on Ukraine, and he starts doing things that gets him impeached, rightly impeached. And if he wants to call that a fake impeachment, or if his lackeys on television and online want to call that a fake, I mean, all they have to do is listen to the words of Republicans in the Senate who've said, yes, what he did was terribly wrong. We just don't have the courage to actually vote to impeach. And so what happens after this? He's just full on, once again, challenging the independence of the federal judiciary. He is corrupting the Department of Justice in a way that we haven't seen since John Mitchell was the Attorney General for Richard Milhouse Nixon. He's telling the military to investigate a war hero simply because what that war hero reported was the truth. We could go through a laundry list of this, but all Donald Trump is doing is hurting himself. Here's a guy who can't stand success. A spate of polls have come out over the past several days that show his approval ratings back in the low 40s again. 41% in the latest Reuters Ipsos among all Americans, 44% with registered voters. Another poll showing him sitting at 43, 44%. This is a guy, again, he can't stand success. Everybody was talking about, oh, his approval ratings are at 49%. No, he is a 43% president. And that's all he will ever be because he can't handle success. He acts too much like punks that we see on playgrounds. They may be the worst basketball players ever, but you played against them. I played against them in pickup games. They score 2 points and they go down the court acting like they're Magic Johnson.
You just described my game. I wasn't playing against them.
And mine.
I was them. Yeah.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.